Of course, we all witnessed what happened in Bud Walton Arena on Saturday. Felt like he had a step forward, 2 steps back. It really crushed any sort of momentum that this Razorback basketball team had. And what little postseason hope that they had going into that game, if they can maybe get turned around, is completely out the door. And I think everyone's kind of accepted that now. So the question becomes, and this is something I want to discuss also, looking back, is like, what do you play for? If you're Arkansas, if you're these players, if you know that the season that you're hoping for is not there, and you know that you've injuries to Boogie Flan being out for the year, still a lot of very tough teams and tough games you're going to have ahead of you. If the postseason's out of play, what do you play for? Who do you play for? What's the point of the rest of the year? What needs to be the goal for this team as individuals as well as a collective for the rest of the season?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. And that's what Calipari and that staff has to be selling right now, because it's a mental toughness thing, a gut check thing. And we could sit here and do the bit about they need to play with pride for the name on the front of their jersey and everything. Well, we've been talking about that the entire year. Somebody on our post-game chat the other night said something along the lines of, I'm real deflated because this kind of puts an end to any tournament hope or whatever. But weirdly, I also feel maybe a little bit better about the direction this team is headed. I think me and Andrew both agreed with that. So really the only thing you can sell is take it game by game, try to continue to improve, make sure you're playing your best basketball at the end of the season. You still have a puncher's chance in the SEC tournament. Do I think they're going to go win that thing? No, absolutely not. But it's like, you got a lot of opportunities to play some really, really good teams, to, just pick some off and build a little confidence and just hope you're playing your best at the end of the season. That's really all I got for you.
I would also say that obviously they're 1-6. We see where this thing is headed. They're not like mathematically eliminated from at-large contention. Obviously, that could change real quick. That could change in like 10 days. We see the writing on the wall. We see where this is headed. But I think until you get to that point where you have like 11, 12 SEC losses, then you're at the point where it's like, okay, we have to win the SEC tournament. Arkansas's not quite there. And so I think for at least a couple weeks, you can kind of sell that to the team if you're John Calipari of like, hey, we just got to get hot. We just got to go on a run. Of course, I'm not trying to make the case that they're really about to go on a 9-game win streak and be an at-large team. But I think there's still like enough season in front of you to where it shouldn't be a full-on letting go of the rope moment. But guys, I was watching, I've referenced it a couple times, Hard Knocks. They did like an in-season AFC North thing. And I remember the Browns, the Cleveland Browns, who had, I don't know what they finished this year, well under 500, did not make the playoffs, and they were out of contention for a while. And Myles Garrett, the former A&M defensive end, he was giving him a speech about, this time of year, ain't got much to play for. It's a pride thing. And he's like, honestly, man, this team is what it is. But he's like, you guys have families to feed. You've got jobs to get. Like, it's going to be, when you have a bad season, it's very easy for people to write you off as an individual. I know that sounds stupid, but it's like, a lot of these guys have aspirations. A lot of these guys think they're going to play at the next level, whether it's, overseas, whether it's G League, whether it's actually in the NBA. And also it's like, dude, you only get one collegiate basketball career. You only get a select few seasons or whatever. So it's like, if nothing else, you should be selfishly playing for your own pride and to make your own career play out a certain way. And so I think unless you just have a team that really hates each other and hates themselves, it's like, you really shouldn't get like a full-on quitting effort out of them. And I will say, I haven't seen that out of this Arkansas team. I've seen a lot of struggles. I've seen a lot of missed shots. I've seen a lot of miscues, but I have not seen them quit on themselves and just roll over and quit. So I actually don't think we're going to see that kind of situation. Maybe we will, but we just haven't seen it yet of like Arkansas starts getting 28-point losses and they're getting completely run out of the gym every night. Really, the only team that's really beat them bad was Tennessee, and that's a very good team on the road. I think Arkansas is going to be competitive enough to be in striking distance. And dude, the SEC is just chaotic in basketball this year. Pretty much every game on the slate, you can look at it and be like, okay, this team's supposed to win. This team's supposed to do that. But pretty much every week it's chaos. And so I think if you're Arkansas, your goal has to be just getting in that mix of chaos. Right now, Arkansas is not even in the real mix of all the teams jammed in the middle of the pack there. I think you've got to claw and get your way to that point and then work from there.
Well, you mentioned the SEC tournament, and yeah, I don't think anyone's going to say, "Hey, Arkansas, they're a team that for sure could win the SEC tournament and get to the tournament." But it is the only path really at this point that's even close to being realistic. And some of you may say it's not realistic, which, yeah, I'm not saying I'm predicting it, but it's because we've seen it before. We've seen teams go into the SEC tournament that had no business really even being in the NCAA tournament, didn't have a bid, but they got it done and then they won. It doesn't happen often, but it's there. So that's kind of what your pathway, I guess, if you're still trying to make the NCAA tournament, would be your best bet. But even then, it's just not going to be the case of it. And also, too, the element of not quitting, it's 100% there as far as this team's effort and they're giving into it. And I think a lot of it comes into, you see a cliche, it's about their competitive nature. But a lot of these guys, are going to go to the NBA, or at least striving to go into the NBA. And the last thing that they want to have, and the last thing that they're built to do, is, hey, when things get bad or whatever, you just mailed it in and you didn't care, because that will be something, whether you want to agree or not, but that will be something NBA franchises look at and be like, okay, well, hey, if we draft you and, we draft you really high and our team's not very good, we're having a rebuilding year, whatever, are you going to be the type of player that just bounces out, or shuts down mentally and doesn't care? So I think that there's always going to be that effort to that. And that's why I still believe, is this team going to win 6-7 games in the SEC? No. But I still think there is at least 1 or 2 games left on this SEC schedule that Arkansas is going to win that maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they are underdogs in. Maybe it doesn't make any sense as to why. But as long as the effort's there, because there is some talent, there is some things that could make this interesting, I still think there's going to be a couple more wins that Arkansas gets on the schedule that they realistically shouldn't, given the circumstances.
That's a pretty good point. And I think Arkansas is not a good basketball team, but they do care. And so, and that was in question for a while there. But to Andrew's point earlier, I think the last couple games, even in the loss against Oklahoma, they gave it their all. They just can't make shots or execute in crunch time, things that not good basketball teams do. But I think I'm with you on maybe winning some games that you shouldn't. Another way to maybe keep these guys motivated and, don't let go of the rope or whatever, outside of like self pride and everything like that, is really taking that game by game approach. Like it's pretty easy to sell the motivation for Saturday, right? Going back to Kentucky, and it's not just Cal, it's DJ, it's Thero, it's Big Z. So everybody on that team should probably go out there and give their best effort, right? And then you go to Texas, and hey, I don't know if people are going to buy into it or not, but we hate Texas around here, so sell that. Oh, Alabama, like those guys are where we want to be. They're coming into our house. Let's give them our best shot. Oh, LSU's coming back. They kicked our ass in their building. It's a get back game. Like every game, Missouri a little bit later in the year, you try to find that, internal motivation to put a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of these guys. Is it going to matter? Probably not. But what else are you going to do?
I think that's a good way to put it. Like, I don't think there should be any misconception of like, oh yeah, this team's about to just rattle off a ton of wins. Like at this point, that would be the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. But yeah, I think that's a good point, that each game kind of has its own motivation within. So, and again, I know that everyone kind of views it this way of like, oh, these players get paid a ton of money, they don't care anymore. That just hasn't been backed up by what we've seen on the court. We've seen a bad basketball team, but we have not seen a team that's just mailed it in. And so I definitely think there's going to be something to that. Like you said, will it matter? Probably not. But in terms of just what's left for this season and what kind of effort we're going to get from this Razorback squad, especially with a week to kind of soul search and really think and dig deep. We saw some of that desperation come out against Georgia. You'd think as you get here down the stretch, there's going to be a lot of that desperation. And if you can't get up to play against the best teams in the country, which Arkansas is about to get ready to play with, Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn, maybe not A&M, I wouldn't consider them that. But yeah, if you can't get up for those games, and it's like, then what are you doing? And then it becomes, you can just look at these players and be like, look, if y'all don't want to play in this game, then how are you going to want to play in the NBA? How are you going to want to play and do all that? And so I actually do think from a motivational standpoint, probably it's not even going to be that tough of a sell. I just seriously question whether or not this Arkansas team is good enough to rattle off consistency and rattle off enough wins in a row. And like we've kind of said all along, they're just going to have to beat teams they're not supposed to beat. And at this point in time, it's really hard to see the vision for that.